24 hours. That's all the time you get before a long-haul flight. And what you do with those hours decides almost everything about how the next 14 in the air will feel. The clock is already running. Most travelers spend that final day making small, innocent-looking choices that turn a long flight into a slow-motion ordeal. The wrong dinner, the wrong nap, the wrong pair of jeans. And the cruel part is that none of it feels like a mistake at the time. It only feels like a mistake somewhere over the ocean, at hour 9, when your ankles are swollen, your head is pounding, and you'd give anything to go back and undo one tiny decision from the night before. So let's walk through that final day together, the night before, the morning of, and those last hours at the gate, and look at the things you should never do. One quick note before we start: bodies are different, airlines are different, and rules change, so treat this as friendly guidance from a fellow traveler, and run anything health-related past your own doctor and your own airline before you fly. Start with the night before, because that's where most long-haul flights are quietly won or lost. The single biggest mistake people make the evening before a big flight is staying up late to get everything done. It feels productive. You're packing, you're checking documents, you're answering last emails, and suddenly it's 1 in the morning and your alarm is set for 5. Here's the problem. You cannot bank sleep on the plane. Almost nobody sleeps well in an economy seat, even on a quiet flight. And starting a 14-hour journey already exhausted means you arrive not just tired, but wrecked. Your body handles time zone changes far worse when it's running on empty, and jet lag tends to hit harder and last longer. Smart travelers flip the whole evening around. They pack a full day earlier, so the night before is calm. They aim for a normal, boring bedtime. Some even nudge their sleep an hour towards the destination's time zone, which many frequent flyers swear takes the edge off jet lag. Is one early night a magic cure? No. But walking onto that plane rested instead of ragged changes everything that follows. And speaking of the night before, what you put on your dinner plate matters more than most people would ever guess. Never treat your last dinner at home like a farewell feast. This one catches so many travelers, especially the night before an early departure. A big, heavy, greasy, or very spicy meal. The giant steak, the creamy pasta, the extra hot curry sits in your stomach for hours. Then you climb into a pressurized cabin where the air pressure is lower than at sea level, and the gas in your digestive system literally expands. That's not an old wives' tale. It's basic physics, and it's why so many people feel bloated and uncomfortable on planes even after eating normally. Add a rich meal on top, and you're looking at heartburn. In a seat that barely reclines, stomach cramps somewhere over the Atlantic, and a desperate relationship with an airplane lavatory. Travelers miss this because the night before a trip feels like a celebration. The smarter move is almost disappointingly simple. Eat a normal, moderate dinner. Lean protein, some vegetables, nothing experimental. And whatever you do, don't try a brand new restaurant or an unfamiliar street food stall the night before a long-haul flight. Save the culinary adventures for when you land. There's no faster way to ruin a trip than food trouble at 35,000 feet, where the nearest comfortable bathroom is hours away. Now, if heavy food is risky, there's a popular pre-flight drink that's even worse. And it's the one most people reach for first. Never use alcohol as your pre-flight relaxer, the glass of wine the night before, to sleep better, the beer at the airport bar to take the edge off, the free champagne the moment you sit down. It all feels harmless, even traditional. But alcohol is a dehydrator, and cabin air is already astonishingly dry. Far drier than most deserts you've ever stood in. You're starting a 14-hour stretch in an environment that pulls moisture out of you with every breath, and alcohol accelerates that. Worse, the sleep it gives you is shallow and broken. You might nod off faster, but you'll wake more often, and you'll wake feeling worse. For nervous flyers, there's another trap. The calming effect wears off mid-flight, and what's left is dehydration, a headache, and the same anxiety as before. Except now you're tired too. Many seasoned long-haul travelers follow a simple personal rule. Nothing alcoholic in the last 24 hours before a big flight, or at most one small drink with a real meal. If you take any medications, this matters double. because alcohol and altitude can interact with some of them in unpredictable ways. That's a conversation for your doctor, not a guess at the gate. And while we're on drinks, there's a second beverage mistake that sabotages almost as many flights, and it usually happens the morning of. Never load up on coffee the morning of departure, and never do the opposite either, which is barely drinking anything at all. Two mistakes, same category, both painful. The triple espresso morning feels logical. Early flight, long day, you need the boost. But caffeine is a mild diuretic. It can keep you wired exactly when you should be resting on board, and it makes pre-flight jitters worse for anxious flyers. The opposite mistake is sneakier. Some travelers, especially older travelers, deliberately drink less water before a flight so they won't need the bathroom as often. I understand the thinking, the aisle seat shuffle, the climbing over strangers, the tiny lavatory. But arriving at the airport already mildly dehydrated, then sitting in bone-dry cabin air for half a day, is a recipe for headaches, dizziness, fatigue, and in some cases, thicker blood and more sluggish circulation, which is the last thing you want when you're sitting still for hours. The better play: hydrate steadily through the day before, keep one normal cup of coffee if you genuinely need it, and bring an empty water bottle through security to fill at a fountain. Many airports have refill stations these days, where available. Sip steadily on board instead of gulping. Your body, your head, and yes, even your bathroom schedule will handle the flight far better. Now let's talk about something you'll wear for the next 14 hours, because this next mistake is one people make standing in front of their closet. Never dress for the photo instead of the flight. Skinny jeans, a stiff belt, new shoes, anything tight at the waist. These are quiet tormentors on a long-haul flight. Here's why. On a long flight, your body swells. Feet, ankles, legs, even your midsection can expand noticeably after hours of sitting in a pressurized cabin. Clothing that fit fine at the departure gate can feel like a tourniquet by hour 10. Tight waistbands dig in. New shoes that were a little snug become genuinely painful. And some travelers who take their shoes off mid-flight discover they can barely get them back on before landing. People make this mistake because they want to look sharp arriving, or they wear their bulkiest shoes to save suitcase space. Smart long-haul travelers dress in soft layers. The cabin can swing from chilly to stuffy and back, with loose, comfortable pants, broken-in slip-on shoes, and socks they wouldn't mind walking around in. Many travelers also ask their doctor about compression socks, which are commonly suggested for long periods of sitting, particularly for older travelers or anyone with circulation concerns. Notice I said, ask your doctor. They're not right for everyone, and that call isn't mine to make. One more clothing note. Skip the metal-heavy outfits and complicated belts, because they slow you down at security too. And security brings us to the airport itself, where there's a timing mistake that turns calm people into sprinting, sweating wrecks. Never cut your airport arrival time close on a long-haul departure day. The mistake sounds like this. It's only 20 minutes to the airport. We'll leave at noon for a 2 o'clock flight. Domestic habits die hard, but international long-haul flights are a different animal. Check-in counters for international routes often close earlier than people expect. In many cases, roughly an hour before departure, though it varies by airline. And document checks, passport control, where applicable, and busier security lines all stack up. Miss that cutoff, and on some airlines, you may be treated as a no-show, which can put your whole booking at risk. But here's the part people underestimate. Even if you make it, the sprint itself costs you. You board with your heart pounding, drenched in sweat, stressed before the journey even begins. And for older travelers, racing through a terminal with bags is genuinely risky, not just unpleasant. The smart move for a long-haul international flight is generous. Many seasoned travelers aim for around 3 hours before departure, more during holidays or at unfamiliar mega airports. Worst case, you sit calmly with a book and a snack. That's not wasted time. That's the difference between starting your trip composed or frazzled. And while we're at the airport, there's something many travelers do in those final hours that seems smart but backfires badly once you're airborne. Never burn through your energy at the airport. And never sit completely frozen either. There's a balance here, and most people land on the wrong side of it. Some travelers, especially with long layovers or early arrivals, exhaust themselves before boarding, marching the full length of the terminal repeatedly, standing in every line, hauling heavy carry-ons up and down, shopping until the final call. Then they board already drained, with 14 hours still ahead. Others do the opposite. They plant themselves in a chair for 3 hours, barely moving, then transition directly into 14 more hours of sitting. That's potentially 17 plus hours nearly motionless, and long periods of immobility are exactly what doctors generally caution against on long journeys, particularly for travelers over 60 or anyone with circulation or clotting concerns. The sweet spot is gentle, deliberate movement. An easy stroll through the terminal, a few minutes of standing and light stretching near the gate, then resting in between. Think of it as topping up your circulation before the long sit. And once on board, the same principle continues. Many airlines actually encourage passengers to move around the cabin periodically when it's safe to do so. If you have any heart, circulation, or mobility conditions, what's right for you is genuinely a doctor question, asked before travel day, not guessed at the gate. Speaking of things, people guess it instead of planning. The next one might be the most dangerous mistake on this entire list, and it fits in a pocket. Never pack your medications in your checked suitcase. If you take any regular medication, blood pressure pills, heart medication, diabetes supplies, anything, it belongs in your carry-on, in your personal item, close to you, every single time. Here's the nightmare scenario. Your flight is 14 hours, your checked bag misses a connection, and now you're on another continent. Without medication you take daily, trying to explain a prescription to a pharmacy in a language you don't speak. It happens more than you'd think, because packing meds in the big suitcase feels tidy, and people assume bags always arrive. They usually do. Usually isn't good enough for medication. Smart travelers keep medications in original labeled packaging, where practical, carry a little more than the trip requires, in case of delays, and bring a simple list of what they take. A few related never-dos while we're here. Never skip a scheduled dose just because you're traveling without first asking your doctor how to handle time zone changes. For time-sensitive medications, crossing many time zones genuinely complicates the schedule. And that's a pre-trip doctor conversation. And never assume a medication that's routine at home is unrestricted at your destination. Rules differ by country, so check official sources for your route. None of this is complicated. It just has to be done before the airport, not remembered at the gate. Now, 2 more traps in those final hours, and the first one involves the most innocent-looking item in your bag. Never board a long-haul flight with a nearly dead phone and no backup plan. In those last hours, people drain their batteries scrolling, taking calls, rearranging plans, and then board with 15%, assuming the seat will have power. On many aircraft it does, on some it doesn't, or the outlet at your particular seat is broken, and there's no way to know in advance. Your phone is no longer just entertainment. It's often your boarding pass for the connection, your hotel confirmation, your translation tool, your map, your way to reach family when you land. Arriving in a foreign country at midnight with a dead phone is a genuinely vulnerable position, especially for travelers who aren't comfortable navigating unfamiliar airports. Charge everything fully the night before. Top up at the gate where charging points are available, and carry a small power bank. And here's the detail many people miss. Spare lithium power banks generally need to travel in your carry-on, not your checked bag, under common aviation safety rules. Check your airline's specifics before you pack. Downloading your entertainment, boarding passes, and key documents for offline use before leaving home is the quiet pro move, because airport Wi-Fi at busy hubs can be slow exactly when you need it. One final never-do remains, and it's the one that sabotages your arrival more than any other. Never nap at the gate, or in those final pre-boarding hours, if your flight strategy depends on sleeping on board. This is the subtle one. You're tired, maybe because you ignored the first point and stayed up packing, and the gate area is warm, and you doze off in the chair. That nap feels wonderful. It also takes the pressure off your sleep drive at exactly the wrong moment. Now you board, the cabin lights dim, The long, dark hours arrive, and you're wide awake, staring at the seat back, doing time zone math in your head. Long-haul comfort is largely a sleep timing game. The general idea many experienced travelers follow is simple. Think about what time it will be at your destination when you land, and try to shape your sleep on board toward that schedule. Landing in the morning? Prioritize sleeping during the flight, which means arriving at the airport tired enough to sleep on board, not freshly napped. Landing in the evening? Staying awake for more of the flight may serve you better. It's not an exact science, and no strategy survives a crying baby 2 rows back, but travelers who think about this even a little tend to recover from jet lag in days instead of a week. Pair it with the basics: water instead of wine, loose clothes instead of tight jeans, a charged phone, meds in your carry-on. And you've stacked the deck about as well as anyone can. So let's rewind that 24-hour clock one last time. The night before. Pack early, eat a normal dinner, skip the alcohol, protect your sleep. The morning of. Hydrate properly, go easy on the coffee, dress soft and loose, and leave for the airport embarrassingly early. At the airport, move gently but don't exhaust yourself. Keep your medications and chargers on your body, and guard your sleep timing like it's part of your ticket. Because honestly, it is. None of these things cost money. Not one requires status, an upgrade, or luck. They're just decisions made calmly before the pressure starts. And that's the real secret of people who step off 14-hour flights looking annoyingly fresh. They didn't survive the flight better than you. They prepared the day before it better than most people ever think to. The flight doesn't begin at takeoff. It begins the moment that final day starts. And now you know exactly what to do with it. If this saved your next long journey even a little discomfort, stick around the channel, because there's plenty more where this came from. And once you've mastered the day before the flight, the next battle is what happens inside the cabin itself. The seat choices, the small habits, and the in-flight mistakes that quietly ruin long flights for millions of travelers. That's a story for next time, and trust me, a few of those will surprise you.